Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians 1:23 and 25 what's really important. He says, we preach Christ crucified, to the Jews a stumbling block, and to Gentiles foolishness. For the foolishness of God is wiser than mankind, and the weakness of God is stronger than mankind. You know, so often we want to help people. And that's a good thing. We want to help people. And so we want to give them advice. We want to tell them, you know, you should do this, you should do this. If you do this, this will happen. But at the center of everything we do needs to be the gospel. Because the gospel of Jesus Christ is what changes people. You know, even people that have physical ailments, they have to be right spiritually. You know, so often, you know, getting your life together and right spiritually will help you physically. So at the center of everything that Paul preached, he says, I preach Christ crucified. You know, if you read the New Testament, you see he taught a lot of other things too. But everything was related to the cross of Christ. Everything came back to the cross of Christ. The cross of Christ, the gospel, Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection was the very basis and foundation of all Paul's teaching. He says, this is what we have to teach. He says, even though to the Jews it was a stumbling block, because remember, the Jews were looking for Jesus, but they were looking for a different kind of Jesus. And to the Gentiles, he says it's foolishness. And I'm sure you've run into people that think that, you know, being a Christian or believing in God is foolishness. But notice it says that even God's foolishness is wiser than the wisest man. You know, and God's weakest, at his weakest, he's stronger than the strongest man. Now we all know in reality that God is not weak. God is not foolish in any way, shape, or form. But this is just to make a point that how great God is, and how much God loves us, and how great God's plan is, how we can trust God's plan, how we don't have to worry about anything because God has a plan. He's stronger than anything in this world. And that's because of Jesus Christ. We can have hope because of Jesus Christ. That was God's plan for us. It may be foolish to the world, but it is the wisest thing that we can preach and teach. We must never forget.